In the heart of bustling Tokyo, where the lights never go out and mysterious stories are hidden beneath the glitzy exterior, a horrifying crime is gradually revealed. A beautiful young girl disappeared without a trace. A few days later, her cold body was found near her home, her eyes wide open, filled with indescribable horror. Who could be so cruel? The remaining marks on her body revealed a horrifying truth that she had been raped multiple times before her death. But what shocked everyone the most was not only her death, but also the horrifying discovery during the autopsy, the amount of semen in her body. What really happened to this girl? Who was behind this gruesome crime? These questions not only haunted the victim's family, but also shocked Tokyo. What dark secret turned the young girl into a victim of a nightmare with no way out? Takashi and Haruto are a gay couple living in Tokyo, Japan. They fell in love in college when they were both students at a prestigious university. Their relationship, like many other couples in the Leg2 community in Japan, has gone through countless challenges. In a society that still holds a heavy prejudice against homosexuals, Takashi and Haruto's love is a constant struggle to survive. Despite all the hardships, they stand firm together and even get married, a dream that many other gay couples still find difficult to achieve. Takashi, strong and determined, leads the relationship. Ever since he was young, he has longed for the perfect family, not just having a partner but also having a child, a symbol of completeness. Takashi believes that having a child not only completes their lives but also challenges social prejudices. To him, a child would be proof that homosexual love can achieve anything like other families. At first, Takashi didn't think much of it. When his relationship with Haruto began, he was focused on protecting their love from the scrutiny of society. But after getting married, Takashi clearly felt that something was missing in their lives. He believed that a child would make the relationship more complete and meaningful. On the other hand, Haruto was more of a quiet person. He loved Takashi with sincere feelings, but never felt the need to have children to prove that love. For Haruto, the fact that they overcame prejudice to openly love each other and get married was more than enough. He didn't share Takashi's desire to have children and felt that having another member wouldn't make life better. Haruto was content with a peaceful life, not wanting to be caught up in the pressure of building a perfect family. The conflict began when Takashi talked about having children. At first, it was just a passing conversation, but gradually Takashi became more and more obsessed. He researched surrogacy, adoption, and other options. Takashi told Haruto that having a child would help them overcome social prejudice and become a real family. Haruto felt pressured but remained firm. He loved Takashi, but did not want children, believing that love was enough. However, Takashi did not give up. The conversations about children turned into arguments, gradually straining their relationship. Takashi felt betrayed by Haruto's lack of empathy, while Haruto felt tired of Takashi's pressure. This difference pushes the relationship into a stalemate. Takashi becomes more and more obsessed with having children, while Haruto becomes more and more afraid that if he doesn't agree, the relationship will fall apart. Haruto loves Takashi but cannot change his mind, while Takashi cannot accept giving up his dream of a complete family. These conflicts gradually erode their relationship, creating a tension that has no way out. Takashi becomes more and more obsessed with having children. For him, it is not only a personal desire, but also a way to prove that their relationship is valuable and can create a complete family like other couples. After failing to adopt a child due to legal barriers and social prejudices in Japan, he begins to look for more extreme solutions. The initial surrogacy idea also failed, and this made Takashi angry and desperate. The pressure grew on Haruto. He loved Takashi deeply and did not want their relationship to fall apart because of this issue. However, Haruto did not agree with Takashi's plans, feeling that they were too far-fetched and inhumane. However, Haruto was gradually dominated by the implicit threat that if he did not carry out this plan with Takashi, their relationship might collapse. In the end, under pressure and fear, Haruto was forced to participate in Takashi's cruel plan, despite feeling conflicted and worried inside. Yumi is a strong, independent, and intelligent woman. She has known Takashi and Haruto since college, when their relationship was built on a deep friendship. To Yumi, Takashi and Haruto are not only close friends but also people she can trust. She has witnessed their love overcome social prejudices and has always supported them wholeheartedly. However, Yumi has no idea that this very relationship has made her the target of a surprising evil plan. Takashi, who is increasingly obsessed with having children, begins to think of Yumi as an ideal choice. To him, Yumi is not only a strong woman but also someone he trusts to help him fulfill his dream. One day, Takashi and Haruto decide to meet Yumi and ask her to be their surrogate mother. Haruto, though not entirely in agreement with the plan, follows Takashi, hoping that Yumi will agree due to their close friendship. During a meeting at a familiar coffee shop, Takashi shared his desire to have a child with Yumi. She listened, but when Takashi suggested that she become a surrogate mother, Yumi was stunned. She did not expect that her two best friends would make such an awkward request. Although she loved Takashi and Haruto, Yumi flatly refused. She felt that surrogacy not only violated her personal ethics, but also caused many psychological and legal consequences that she did not want to face. Takashi was very disappointed by Yumi's refusal. In his mind, Yumi was the only person who could help him, and Haruto realized this dream. He could not understand why she refused. This refusal quickly turned into anger. Takashi not only felt betrayed, but also thought that Yumi did not take his legitimate wishes seriously. In Takashi's mind, Yumi was no longer a friend, but an obstacle preventing him from achieving his dream. Haruto, despite his worries, still couldn't refuse Takashi. He was afraid that if he didn't follow Takashi, their relationship would fall apart. Haruto was caught up in Takashi's anger and was eventually forced to accept the plan to force Yumi. Haruto felt tormented, but his love for Takashi made him unable to resist this crazy idea. Takashi, unable to accept Yumi's rejection, began to come up with cruel ideas. He suggested that if Yumi didn't agree willingly, they would have to use force to force her. Haruto, despite knowing this was wrong, still couldn't resist Takashi's control. Forced by love and the fear of losing their relationship, Haruto gave in and agreed to join the plan to force Yumi. Takashi now no longer saw Yumi as a close friend, but only as a tool to achieve his dreams. Their dark plan gradually takes shape, and Haruto, helpless and desperate, can only follow. Their sincere friendship now turns into a dangerous game where love and trust are destroyed by dark ambition and desire. After being flatly rejected by Yumi, Takashi and Haruto decided to carry out the brutal plan they had devised in desperation. Takashi, with growing anger and obsession, planned it out at L. They chose a time in the evening when Yumi was on her way home from a meeting with friends, a time when she would be least alert. Takashi and Haruto knew Yumi's daily routine well, knowing exactly where she was going. They used their own car to follow her from a distance, being careful not to attract any attention. When Yumi reached a deserted stretch of road, Haruto quickly approached and forced her into the car before she could react. Yumi had no chance of escaping, and their kidnapping plan succeeded without leaving any traces. Yumi was taken to a remote house that Takashi had prepared in advance. It was a place far from the city center, isolated and deserted, where no one could hear any cries for help. In that house, Takashi and Haruto took turns raping Yumi in the hope that she would become pregnant, fulfilling their sick dreams. Yumi, in horror and despair, tried to resist with all her might. She screamed and fought back, but could not escape from her two former best friends. Every minute that passed, she was pushed into a horrible nightmare, both physical and mental pain weighing down on her. Yumi's strength gradually depleted, and fear filled her mind as she realized that she would not be able to escape this situation. After being repeatedly raped and severely injured, Yumi's body was exhausted. She gradually lost consciousness, no longer having the strength to resist or call for help. In the end, her body could not bear the extreme pain, and Yumi breathed her last breath at the scene. Yumi's death was not what Takashi and Haruto expected, but when they realized that she was dead, both of them fell into a state of panic. Takashi, who had initiated this plan, began to feel regret. Haruto, who always been controlled by Takashi, also could not have imagined that things had gotten out of control. Not only had they committed a cruel crime, but they had also accidentally killed their best friend. so neither of them could face the fact that their plan to force their child had turned into an irreparable tragedy. Fear and haunting began to grip them as they stood before Yumi's body, realizing that their crime was now not just rape but murder. When they realized that Yumi was dead, Takashi and Haruto fell into a state of panic. In their fear, they knew that if they were discovered, they would face serious consequences. The decision to hide the body became their only option. With no other choice, they brought Yumi's body near her house and set up a fake crime scene. Takashi and Haruto tried to create signs that Yumi had been attacked by some stranger, intentionally making it look like a random attack or accident. They believed that this way the police would not suspect them, since their long-standing friendship with Yumi had been the perfect cover. The two did everything quickly and carefully, although they were constantly worried. Haruto felt guilty and regretful, but under Takashi's guidance, they continued to pretend to be normal, hoping that everything would pass without anyone knowing the terrible truth. They thought that if they set up the scene perfectly, the police would not be able to find any clues related to them. After 2 days of Yumi's disappearance, her family began to worry. Seeing no news of their daughter, they organized a search everywhere, from friends to places she frequented. When the family discovered Yumi's body near their home, the pain was indescribable. They collapsed at the tragic scene. Yumi's death was so sudden and mysterious, it plunged her family into grief and confusion. They immediately reported the incident to the police. The police opened an investigation, quickly focusing on Yumi's close relationships, especially Takashi and Haruto, who were longtime friends. The long-standing acquaintance between the three made the police question their possible involvement, and the investigation began to focus on shady details that might have been overlooked at first. After receiving the report from Yumi's family, the police immediately opened an investigation and conducted an autopsy. The autopsy results showed that Yumi's body showed clear signs of rape. The bruises and injuries on her body showed that this was a deliberate and premeditated sexual assault. This made the case more serious and led the police to believe that the perpetrator was not a random stranger. During the autopsy, they also discovered semen in Yumi's body, further clarifying the possibility that she had been sexually assaulted multiple times before her death. All the evidence collected from Yumi's body made the police focus on investigating those close to her. They began to suspect that the perpetrator could be one of the victim's acquaintances, as the incident showed a certain calculation and familiarity with Yumi. In addition to semen during the autopsy, the police also discovered a few short hairs on Yumi's body and clothes. This further raised the police suspicion that the attacker was someone closely related to the victim. Hair samples were collected for DNA testing to determine the identity of the perpetrator. In parallel with collecting evidence from the body, the police also investigated Yumi's phone. They discovered that, in the last calls before her disappearance, Yumi had contacted Takashi and Haruto, two of her longtime close friends. This immediately aroused the police's suspicion and began to focus the investigation on them, as the evidence gradually led to the possibility that Takashi and Haruto were involved in Yumi's death. After finding a short hair sample on Yumi's body, the police conducted a DNA test to identify the person involved. The test results confirmed that the hair sample belonged to Takashi. This turned the police's attention entirely on Takashi, but they still needed more evidence to solidify their suspicions. At the same time, when they continued to check Yumi's phone, the police discovered that she had called Takashi and Haruto on the night of her disappearance. This has further increased suspicion that the two might be involved in Yumi's kidnapping and rape. Based on the information obtained from the investigation, the police decided to summon Takashi and Haruto to take semen samples to compare with the semen sample found in Yumi's body. After testing, the results showed that the semen sample in Yumi's body completely matched the DNA of Takashi and Haruto. So it clearly proved that both of them had participated in the rape, and their role in Yumi's death was undeniable. With evidence from hair samples, phone records, and semen samples, the police had enough evidence to charge Takashi and Haruto. All the clues pointed to them, and the initial suspicions became undeniable facts. After obtaining enough evidence, the police ordered the arrest of Takashi and Haruto. Initially, both of them tried to deny any involvement in Yumi's death. They made up a story that their meeting with Yumi was just a normal one and that they had nothing to do with the case. However, faced with undeniable DNA evidence and phone records, Takashi and Haruto had no choice but to admit their crimes. Takashi was the first to confess. He admitted that he was the mastermind behind the plan to rape Yomiuri and impregnate her, hoping that this would help him have the child he had always wanted. Takashi said that he had planned it for a long time and that he had forced Haruto to participate. Haruto, although involved, in his confession said that he was completely controlled by Takashi. He admitted that he had participated in the plan, but always felt conflicted and afraid. Haruto said that he was forced into a situation where he could not fight back, because he was afraid that if he did not follow through, he would lose Takashi. However, this did not change the fact that the two had committed the terrible crime that led to Yumi's death. With these confessions, Takashi and Haruto were charged with rape and murder, closing a tragic case that began with an inhuman wish and ended with the death of their best friend. Takashi and Haruto were brought to trial for rape and murder. The case quickly attracted great public attention, not only because of the brutal nature of the crime, but also because it was one of the rare cases involving a homosexual couple in the context of Japanese society. Many people were not only horrified by the crime, but also curious about the complicated relationship between the two criminals. At the trial, lawyers for both sides made arguments revolving around the toxic relationship between Takashi and Haruto. Witnesses and evidence were presented to clarify the motives of both. Takashi was seen as the mastermind, the one who planned to force Yumi to get pregnant, and the one who controlled every action during the crime. Meanwhile, Haruto was presented as someone who was blinded by love. Although Haruto participated in the crime, his testimony and evidence showed that he was under Takashi's control. The trial lasted for several days, with horrifying details about Haruto's dependence on Takashi and Takashi's obsession with having the child. The details of how the two planned and carried out the rape, and how they tried to cover up the crime after Yumi's death shocked everyone in attendance. In the end, after reviewing the circumstances, the jury sentenced Takashi to life in prison. As the mastermind and perpetrator of the crimes, he received the maximum sentence due to the brutality and inhumanity of his actions. Takashi not only ruined Yumi's life, but also took advantage of Haruto's love to drag him into the case. Haruto, although also involved in the case, was considered to be under Takashi's control and coercion. The court concluded that Haruto acted under heavy psychological pressure from Takashi and that he did not commit the crime voluntarily. As a result, Haruto received a lighter sentence with a 20-year prison sentence. Although the sentence was lower than Takashi's, Haruto was still responsible for Yumi's death. The trial ended in relief for the victim's family, but also left many viewers haunted by the toxic love that led to this terrible crime.